Hey everybody, this is Perch. Um, One of the sadder things I think about comics right now is this common trait that you see in some creators, some people who work in comics. For lack of a better word, we're defining creator here as anyone who works in comics, including people in the distribution, marketing, editing, etc. job, not just the writers and the artists, but anyone who's in the comic field. And certainly this exists within some customers, and it's this rock solid certainty, this absolute clear, like you cannot argue against it. You cannot say anything to the contrary. It is not a debatable point. It's not something to be investigated or tested. It is a fact, a all caps fact that this exists. And what's sad is about this is that it's not based in reality. It's not based in anything that is widespread tangible. The problem is there's just enough proof to validate these beliefs that it causes them to stick. I was talking to, as I've talked to many different people, I talked to a friend of mine who works within the distribution arm at Marvel. So this is in ultimately what's kind of David Gabriel's domain, but a bigger kind of umbrella of people there. And the person was explaining to me how there's a large group of fans, not a handful, but a large group who are hateful, awful bigots. They want to see comics only. Nobody working in comics should be anything but white male people working in comics. Nothing else. No women writers. No nothing. Just white males. That's it. And the sad part is, this is somebody I've had drinks with from time to time, and somebody who I think is a reasonably fun person. We don't agree on that many things politically, but it's never been an issue. We've never had like our brawls over politics. In fairness, I if you go to my comments, see lots of people who come and take shots at me at various times, especially on other people's boards. It always is crazy. I don't know what possesses somebody to go on somebody else's channel and then start to want to talk about me. That just seems like an entire waste of time. But dude, whatever makes you happy. But certainly you see every now and then some kind of wild, crazy person who's just ranting or won't hear anything else about it. But by and large, by the way, if you're with me in person, it's hard to get really angry at me. I don't know. I have a way about me. I think anybody who works, who has worked in retail or has worked where you have to be a consultant or you got to get people to get along. I'm not somebody in real life in person that generates a lot of rage. I tend to be the bringing people together guy. That's been my claim to fame, for better or worse, which is sometimes bad because every now and then you need to get angry with somebody, and you can't do it. It's if you have this behavior, just you can't even throw down that behavior. But regardless, this friend of mine, friend is too strong a word, but somebody I've drank with, somebody I've hung out with, has been reasonable, and hearing her talk about this, hearing her talk about it like this, that there's this big group of people. Again, big group. For whatever reason, that's what kept sticking with me. This large group of just awful, terrible bigots, worst in humanity. Want to rid all women from comics and just, I don't know what exactly what the goal was. I always ask whenever somebody starts arguing with me or brings something up that is a very absolute kind of argument. I always ask, like, what do you think is the end goal? What is the end goal? Nobody can ever answer that question. I ask, what is the end goal? Is it like nothing but Wolverine and the Punisher are published anymore? Like Batman, like there's no, like all the women in comics just run around in bikinis all the time for no apparent reason? Like what is the end goal that you think in this fantasy of yours where there's this large group of fans? Because let's be honest, are there a few fans who believe this? Probably. There's a few of everything out there. There are people who still believe the earth is flat. There are still people who believe that, Arby's is good meat. You understand, I have to at this point. But my point, jokes aside, somebody believes everything. I'm watching Netflix and there's a show with some woman who married a building. Like she believes she's married to a inanimate building, like a brick building. I mean, there's weirdos everywhere. Is I guess my point. No judgment, but a little bit of judgment because that's weird. You can always find somebody out there like this, but to say a lot of fans want this, or any kind of majority, or more than one half of a percent want this, no. I'm sorry, no. It's a nice fantasy people like to have in their heads, that there's this evil group out there that we must rage against, we must rally against. This is our rallying cry. For previous generations, they had Vietnam and they had slavery and they had women's rights, and we have the angry men who want to rid women out of comics. That's our. This is going to be our battle to fight. But there's no battle. That's a ridiculous notion. But she's talking to me with just complete certainty, and it's depressing. It doesn't make me angry. It doesn't make me go, oh, how dare you. It doesn't make me want to fight the person. It just makes me want to get away from them as fast as possible, because I think I'm just depressed. I'm like, here you are, a grown adult, and you're believing something that is absolute crazy. That's a silly notion. And again, I asked too. I said, like, you said a lot of people. Like, how many people do you think there are? How many? The answer, like 35, 40%. Almost half of the comic fans, the people who like comics, almost half of them want to rid all women and minorities from comics. Are you insane? And I go no, there's no way. I said that's a little crazy. In my head, I'm thinking that's a lot crazy. And she gets defensive. Like, you see them online. Do you realize that there are women creators who they can't even go online without getting thousands of disgusting, like, rape threats? I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't think that's happening. I don't. Again, is it happening a little? Yes. Is that good? No. If anybody listening to this has ever caught themselves writing just this kind of vile, disgusting threat to a female creator, you're nuts. You're wrong. I'd like to think that the vast majority, if not 100% of the people listening to this right now, have not done that, because that is crazy behavior. Any more than, like, going into Target and saying this in person to a cashier would be crazy. That's crazy. Don't do it. And I don't think we need to make an example out of those people. It's a small enough group that you can simply, deal with it on a case-by-case basis, because it's not going to take up that much of your time. Now, to be fair, and this is the part that always gets people like, oh, look at Perch doing the two sides stuff. And by the way, if you catch yourself saying that, you're an asshole, just bluntly. If you look at the comments, because one of the interesting things about my video, maybe this isn't that surprising, is typically speaking, customers, fans tend to leave comments in YouTube, like I ask them to, and I appreciate the people who write them. It's always nice. And creators, people who work in the industry, tend to send me mail or text. That's what they tend to do, which is, again, fine. I do wish at times that some of the creators would post things more publicly, because I think it would dispel a lot of the myths that people have about creators. But I also understand, if you're a creator, you're like a magnet. You're going to get a lot of people gravitating to you, wanting to interact, and it's just you put a spotlight on yourself. So I get it. It's another one of those kind of sad things. I wish it wasn't that way, but I get it. But I get customers, fans from time to time showing up in my comments. I'm sure you've seen them, and they have an equally, absolutely certain belief that is equally crazy, and that is that there is a angry, antagonistic, death cult like cabal of comic creators, not a few, but most of them. And again, this is always a lot of comic creators. It's the word "a lot" that is always the problem in all these cases. Because again, yes, absolutely, yes. Are there some comic creators out there who are, who are hateful, awful people? Yes. Yes, just like there are absolutely some customer and fans out there that are hateful, awful. There are. The majority of them, though, no, no. I've done the same thing. I was like, how many comic creators do you believe are part of this hateful death cult that want to see? Again, I had somebody like yesterday, and by and large, I went a long time not just booting people from the channel. I did yesterday with some dude who comes in here and it's like, fuck you over. I'm like, I'm sorry, no, if that's going to be the conversation we're going to have, no. I've been polite enough. I've served as an example for others. Now we're going to call it a day. You're just a lunatic at this point. But I ask these people sometimes, like, how many comic creators do you believe want to see you dead? Because you see people posting stuff. They being comic creators, won't be satisfied until a big portion of their fan base is dead. Not just not reading comics, dead. Now, again, this is 1%. Occasional, they're there, but they're easy to ignore and they're easy to deal with because it's not the majority of comic people fans doing that. It's not anywhere close to it. It's every now and then there's a lunatic, but the lunatic who comes in and says, "How?" I'm amazed. What got you to this place where you are so certain that comic creators, of all people, by the way, comic creators, not even like the army, the government, people who actually might have the tools to do what you're saying, but comic creators. Bill Sienkiewicz is going to go and he is going to hunt you down and murder you. Like, what got you there? I can understand being pissed. I can understand being pissy. I can understand being frustrated with the tone and the behavior and kind of the condescending attitude. God knows I'm with you on that in many cases. There are some comic creators who are absolutely insufferable, both online and in person. Definitely. Sure, I am very sensitive to people who come across as overly arrogant. And in the creative industry, whatever it happens to be, by the way, art, photography, anything, movies, music, certainly comics too, the ego runs out of control with some people. Right now, as I'm saying this, I guarantee you can close your eyes, don't do it if you're driving, and you can picture somebody, a comic creator, who is an arrogant prick. I know you can do it. I find that behavior irritating, offensive. Don't like it. Try and avoid it. I don't think that comic creator is secretly plotting to murder me. That's ridiculous. But what strikes me and what again makes me sad more than anything is that the people we're talking about, the lunatic customer or the lunatic creator, is a tiny fraction of the whole. Why do we spend so much time talking about that? Why is that this constant topic of conversation? Why is it that in my comments, again, not a day goes by that somebody doesn't bring up this idea that the comic creators are out to get us? Why? Is the argument that that comic books aren't of the quality that they used to be? I agree. I do. Is the argument that comics are too expensive? I agree there as well. That some creators are irritating, that they are arrogant and egotistical? Yep, that's true. Some are. Is the argument that some creators decide to grind a political or ideological axe rather than focusing on telling a good story? That is true. Some do. We've got a comic where John Kent, I mean, God, the path of disaster of John Kent. I mean, you have this character, one of the most successful new characters that DC had introduced in a decade. The one that probably precedes him is Damian. One that probably precedes Damian is probably Harley. This is new IP that can be made, that money can be made off of. The amount of absolute money that was left on the table by aging up John Kent is ridiculous. Are you with everything that that the movies and entertainment movies are and games are trying to do? You're telling me a teen or a kid Superboy and a kid Robin, a Damian and John Kent pairing is not like that is money. That is a cartoon up and down. Go get the God. Go get Joe. Go get Joe Casey and the Men of Action team to do that cartoon. Like it is just bank sitting right there. We age him. We get into bizarre storylines. The latest comic has John Kent being voluntarily allowing himself to be arrested and laid away in handcuffs because he's getting himself involved in a refugee situation from a foreign country. What are you doing? Seriously, what in the world are you doing? It is impossible not to read that in a time where every single day the news is hyper focused on the southern border and everything going on there and not think this comic is trying to make a commentary on current events. And I don't think that, by the way, the writer wouldn't hide from that. So does it exist? Of course it exists. Is it sometimes happening at the expense of a good story? Yes, I agree. Does that mean that the comic industry people are murderous lunatics who aren't going to be satisfied until 30 to 40% of the people are gone? No, that I'm sorry, no. I'm not willing to take that extra step. Some of you are, cool. The problem is, and the depressing part is, I can see that step on the horizon now. It's not true, but it's everybody is kind of working themselves up to get there, because when I talk to somebody who's in distribution, not somebody with a Twitter account, not somebody who's out there arguing with customers and fans every day, not any of that, just unknown random person who believes that 30 to 40% of the comic buying audience wants to eliminate all women from comics, and it's now a hardened belief in their heart. This is a person that is going to get to the point where they are going to start to believe that we've got to segment off the group. This is a group getting this is a person who's gearing up for war. That God, how depressing that is in comics, for God's sake. I'm saying all this, which I'm sure many of you find ridiculous, pointless. Why are we talking about it again? I asked the question myself. I hope people see this and hear this and think this sounds insane, because that is exactly the correct way to view this. That is exactly the right way to look at this. Anything else? I mean, there's not a sane way to look at this. That is correct. This is bad that we're all taking these steps in this direction. Not we all. Sorry, that these people. It's amazing to me. I think the cautionary tale is, and God, if there's any piece of advice to come out of all of it, is be careful of what you consider a hard and absolute fact in your mind. If you're not constantly challenging your assumption, if you're not constantly checking to make sure that the facts in your, then you're crazy. I get this guy that I had to boot yesterday is somebody who, I'm going back and forth, and the guy's arguing with some other me. He's like, you're telling me this, you're telling me that. I'm like, no, I am not. Nowhere in this conversation do you see any of this. And it didn't matter. He was arguing with a shadow. That's not what comics should be. Well, I find it amazing. 30 to 40%. Good Lord. I mean, just ask you a question. Has the Trump-Biden election broken everybody so much to the point that we're all willing to assume that, a third to a half of the country are irredeemable and broken forever? I mean, if this battle is being waged, of course, everywhere, in sports, in movies, and music and entertainment, everywhere. So not just comics, but it's a dead end. This isn't a functional society where 30 to 40% of the people just we're always going to believe that a third to half of the country are bitter enemies. That's a problem. I'm sure everybody can recognize why that is a big problem. Historically, when the world has gotten into places like that, it has resulted in a pretty big problem. For the love of God, don't let it exist in comics. If you're a creator listening to this right now, no, there are not 30 to 40% of people that want to do this. No. If you're a customer or fan, look, there's a lot of creators you never hear from. They're not secretly plotting to murder you. They're not secretly plotting against you. Many of them are turning in half-assed stories. That's a completely different problem, for what it's worth. If right now you're already starting to type and put in that hot take back of, nah, Perch, you're just naive. You don't know what people are really up to. Please, just do me one favor. If nothing else, I don't ask you for super chats or anything else. Just please spend 2 minutes rethinking that position. If you spend 2 minutes and you still believe it, I'll go for it. But don't be that person. Come on. And yes, I don't care who you are in this divide. I will buy you a beer when I see you. So you got a beer waiting for me. Whoever you voted for, whether you think Silver Surfer or Superman would win, I'll buy you a beer. Thanks for listening.